Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to another edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. I am your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
3 weeks till Kingdom Hearts.
And
I'm a little excited.
I was going to say, is that like an important date? Or
yes, for me.
Yeah, exactly.
For those who don't understand, if you've ever had to wait a really long time for something to come out, a movie, a book, TV show, comic, whatever, compare that to yourself and how excited you were when it finally came out. That's what it is for me.
Yeah, Pad has got the Kingdom Hearts countdown going. We might actually have to put that on the Facebook page. I don't know. We're debating about that. But folks, thank you for joining us as always. Let's get right into it. Hashtag it up with us. Hashtag ODPHEE if you want to join the conversation on social media, because, hey, we want to hear from you. So let's start off with the biggest news story of the week, and that had to be the final trailer for Captain Marvel. The MCU's return in 2019 is kicking off in a big way, one of the most highly anticipated movies of the year, and it had some new footage in it, so we're going to be talking spoilers. If you haven't seen it, if you have, let's join in that conversation in 3, 2, 1. Pad, what did you think?
I liked the trailer. The one particular part I liked about it was when they should have seen him. I presume it's in a diner or a bar or something, and she's kind of explaining what's going on. And he goes, Fury asks her a question, and she shoots I believe she calls it a photon beam out of her hand.
Yes, she does.
And destroys what I think is a TV in the background. You don't see it quick enough to really get a shot of what it is. It's like a TV or microwave or something. And she just obliterates it. And she goes, that was a photon blast. Skrulls can't do that. And he goes, and I'm supposed to take your word for that? And she gives a Dwayne The Rock Johnson eyebrow raise. Mm-hmm. I love the little scene like that because it shows, okay, while stuff is going sideways in the biggest way possible in the Earth, universe, Fury doesn't take her at face value and just trust her on a whim. And I like that.
Yeah, there was a nice little touch in there too, because it was something that when you're kind of seeing the movie, you're kind of really understanding the friendship that is going on between Nick Fury and Carol Danvers. It really isn't explained that much in the post-Captain Marvel universe as in the current Avengers movie,
right,
of why the significance is of Captain Marvel to Nick Fury and how she is going to play a vital role in saving the day from Thanos, so to speak.
I was saying presumably why Fury's been carrying around a beeper for the better part of 2-3 decades.
Well, it did get leaked out, and this is going to be a very big spoiler, that apparently Captain Marvel has the ability to time travel.
Now, you say it got leaked out. Where did it get leaked out from?
Pad?
Well, it got leaked out in an interview Samuel L. Jackson did with Entertainment Tonight. Samuel L. Jackson himself said, quote, "She's pretty much the strongest character in terms of someone with powers are able to do things in the Marvel Universe. So for Carol Danvers to be that person and for Brie to become that person, it's going to be a dynamite thing. I mean, the Avengers are up against some really, really tough odds right now. We saw throughout Infinity War. So now we know that we need something that's as powerful as Thanos. And at some point, we'll find out how powerful she is and all the things that she's capable of. She's one of the few people in the Marvel Universe that can time travel. So, ... close quote."
Yeah, that spoiler really has been kind of making its way around.
Yeah, say Tom Holland ain't the only one who can't keep a secret these days.
Apparently. So this is going to be kind of interesting to see if this is how the beeper is somehow connected to reaching Captain Marvel in the past.
Which would make a lot of sense.
I tell you,
it'll work, I don't know.
I need to get hooked up with that kind of connection because
right?
I don't know how that's going to necessarily connect everything, but I know Marvel's going to find a way too, and I'm assuming if it's something about the quantum realm connection,
right?
Who knows?
We'll say it's Marvel. They'll find a way.
Oh, they'll find a way. I mean, obviously, and we saw enough of the new footage in the trailer mixing with some of the old. The biggest takeaway I had was not that it was just Elastica was connected in the song connection, which that is a throwback to the 90s. They're definitely keeping it there. And when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, I have not heard this song in forever.
I'll say, I would imagine it's going to be kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy 1, where there were a lot of hit songs that a lot of people loved. It was one of the most popular selling soundtracks that year the movie came out. I imagine this one's going to be the similar. There's going to be a lot of songs you remember and big songs you remember. There's also going to be songs in there that you go, oh my God, I completely forgot that one.
Yeah, I completely forgot about Elastica. And when I heard Connection, I'm like, I know this song. And I marked out because I'm just like, this is really keeping it very 90s, very, there's so many different sounds that came out in the 90s. As a music fan, I was definitely into. And obviously when they opened with it, with the jukebox of all things, as they're going into scene. But the biggest takeaway I have from this is not just the great music. We saw the Skrull change. They did a transformation.
That was interesting.
They landed on a beach, and you kind of saw how they're going to do the CGI for transforming into humans. And I thought it was very telling because obviously when you're dealing with Skrulls and you're dealing with shape-shifting, I think this is kind of segueing to something I've mentioned before on the podcast, that I think that the direction they're going to go post in Endgame is going to be into Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
And this is planting enough of the seeds in it that to know the impact of Secret Invasion, the comic book story, which I highly recommend, is when the Skrulls do this long, drawn-out, slow burn takeover plan of implementing Skrulls into different teams of the Marvel superheroes and just daily lives of the Earth 616 universe. If they've been doing this, and this movie is dated back in the 90s,
right?
We're now into 2019, as we're assuming the Avengers is in present time. That is a big time span to make that happen. Now, am I saying this is going to be the prelude for Avengers 5? No. I think there's going to be some tie-ins because I think if the direction is going to be going more cosmic, as they're kind of alluding to, just the sense I'm getting, this is a very big thing to do.
This is kind of like the planting seed, kind of like how the Tesseract, you can argue, was the planting seed in Captain America 1 for the build-in for Loki and everything else with Thanos. This, to me, kind of feels like the planting seed for whatever it is, the next build-up phase, if you will, where Avengers 5, it won't be the full-on start of Secret War, but it'll be kind of like the confirmation. It'll be kind of like when you see Thanos at the end of Avengers 1. Okay, this is where they're going. Avengers 5, it might be something to the effect of, oh, yeah, hey, by the way, you thought the Skrulls were gone from Earth? Nah, they're still here.
No, I could definitely see it being like a side story. I don't know necessarily if they would go the Avengers 5 route with that. My unofficial ODPH guess about this is Avengers 5 might be Secret Wars.
Okay.
The Jonathan Hickman version.
Sure.
I want to clarify that because I know I don't want to say it's the story that brings Venom into the MCU. No.
There's people who would like that, though.
I know there's people like that. I would like to see that, too. But no. I'm talking about the Jonathan Hickman story, which is incredible, but that had so much buildup. And I just can see that would work on the big screen, especially now that you're getting all the Fox characters.
Oh, yeah. Now, and it's enough of a build-up to, the first Marvel build-up took 10 years to build up to. This one will arguably take the same amount of time, if not maybe a little longer, a little shorter. We'll see. Time will tell. That is enough time because they will get the Fox rights back, and they plan stuff out for the future that will give them time to weave all of this into a narrative that makes sense and doesn't feel forced.
Right, and Marvel has taken such a good job about building up their universe that they're going to take their time with this. I'm sure they've already had the groundwork laid out.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, obviously, I think there's going to be a couple factors that kind of play into this. I think, one, how Captain Marvel shapes up, and depending on how the ending is going to be, because obviously, one of two things is going to happen. Captain Marvel is going to stay in the 90s, and it's going to be just an origin story, and we'll kind of see maybe a post-credit scene of how she connects to Nick Fury in the present time.
Right.
Or two, you're going to see her now jump into the present time and kind of leave everything in the past, so to speak.
If I had to guess, if I were a betting man, I think the post-credit scene, the post-credit scene in Avengers Infinity War was Fury hitting the beeper, as it were, and you saw the logo. I think the post-credit scene in Captain Marvel is going to be the immediate aftermath of that post-credit scene, where it's going to be her getting said message and going, all right, we need... she might not even say anything, but it's going to be kind of one of those moments where she goes, all right, time to go.
It would make a lot of sense to do that. I mean, there's just so many different ways they can go with it, and they didn't tip off anything in the footage, which I was very happy with the trailer.
You're seeing a lot of the same scenes and kind of moments in the two trailers, so that's a good sign.
Oh, I think it's a very good sign, because if they're going to do the Kree-Skrull War, which is what I'm fully banking on, they're going to do the MCU version. They're obviously not going to involve the Avengers in this, per se. But you're going to have Captain Marvel single-handedly ending that whole saga by herself, which is awesome, and I think that's the right direction to go in. What happens post is going to be a lot of, kind of up in the air, and like I said, the the footage that we've seen with the trailer really hasn't tipped a hand either way. The only thing we've really kind of seen is there's more training, and you're kind of seeing how her flashbacks on Earth and how she's transformed, so to speak, both physically and mentally, from being an Earthling to now part of the Kree army.
The training scenes I think are going to be real interesting, because I think it's good that she just doesn't, however, get these powers. They blend the DNA together, whatever it is. And, oh, hey, all of a sudden, I'm one of the most powerful people in the MCU. No, she's got to, build up to this. She's got to get these under control, and then she gets to that point. I like that.
Right, which I think is going to be pretty much the basis of the movie, which I'm perfectly fine with. I agree with you on that.
I'll say, if you're creating and introducing one of the most powerful characters, powerful heroes in, Marvel Comics and soon to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you have to do it. And what I would imagine is she's going to be this next phase or next buildup of Marvel movies as what Captain America was to this original buildup, where she's one of the big ones. She's one of the main focus points, whereas you think of Avengers 1, Cap got a lot of screen time in Avengers 1. I would imagine going forward in Avengers movies, Brie Larson's going to get a lot of screen time with those movies.
Oh, without question.
But it makes sense to do this.
It makes a lot of sense, and I do agree with you. I think actually Captain Marvel is going to become the leader of the Avengers by the time Endgame's done. I think there's going to be kind of shifting of who's on the Avengers roster at the end of Endgame. Not saying anybody's getting killed off, but I think you're going to see a transition of new faces on the roster moving forward. And obviously everybody knows Chris Evans is done with Marvel for now after Avengers Endgame. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm saying Sebastian Stan could pick that up as Bucky and run that story with Captain America.
Yep.
And obviously you put Brie Larson, Carol Danvers at the head of that team.
Yeah.
Right there is your Avengers starting point, so to speak.
Sure.
And you can obviously go a lot of different directions.
Yeah, Doctor Strange, Black Panther on the team as well.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel has got so many plethora of characters they can involve. And it's not to say, and you're not going to see this in Avengers Endgame, but maybe in the next movie, you might see possibly a Wolverine join the team.
Right.
It's not out of question. Not for this coming movie, but the ones after.
Right. I think the ones coming after, it's probably an all but guarantee that they will be there in some capacity. This one, however, no.
No, this one, we can't stress enough. You're not going to see any of the Fox characters in Avengers Endgame. They only will be referenced possibly in a post-credits scene.
There might be a reference as to, a news article or a story on the news where... If Eagle Eye, it's kind of like the one that immediately comes to mind is Batman v Superman, or no, Superman Man of Steel, where he got thrown into low orbit where all the satellites were, and he grabbed onto a satellite that I believe said Wayne Tech or something like Wayne Enterprises. It's a blink and you miss it scene, but eagle-eyed fans picked up on it. I feel like there might be something in Endgame or even one of the future movies where they're not going to say, "Hey, the mutants are here," but there'll be something like, "Oh, and in San Francisco today there was an unexplained explosion at a family's house that tore apart 6 city blocks," or something like you'll hear something, but it won't be an overt statement.
No, the closest I think you're going to hear is the name Richards or Baxter Building. That's my unofficial guess on this. Yeah. I got lots of guesses concerning what's going to happen and how they're going to introduce. I fully suspect that they will be in a post-credit scene in some fashion mentioned.
Yeah.
Just mentioned.
Yeah.
So anything else, like I said, don't hold breath on it. But overall, Pat, final thoughts on the Captain Marvel trailer.
I was excited for this movie when they announced it. I was even more excited when I saw the first trailer, the teaser trailer. I'm even more excited for this one. I wanted the movie to be here already.
I mean, obviously, when they kicked in with Elastica's connection, I was getting amped up. And we see the banter going back and forth between Nick Fury and Carol Danvers, which is very ironic because you kind of see, I don't want to say a happier Nick Fury, but kind of a more jovial, dare I say, than the version we've seen obviously in Avengers moving forward.
Yep.
And you kind of see the friendship getting formed there from the beginning of the trailer to the end, where they kind of tie it all back together, where they're just kind of having a one-up on each other. And then as you're seeing the training is going through, you're seeing a lot more action scenes involving Captain Marvel. You're seeing the Skrulls do the transformation. You see a cameo by the one and only Clark Gregg, a.k.a. Phil Coulson. Our director of our director of S.H.I.E.L.D., so to speak. That's in the present time. Always will be, forever and ever. But besides that, the trailer did enough to establish. It did enough to build. I'm excited for it. Tickets are now on sale, so definitely check your local theaters about what's going on for that. March 8th, but unless you go to Thursday night showings on the 7th, is the kickoff date for Captain Marvel. Tell us, are you excited for it? We want to know. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPHEE. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is George Gatton, and you are listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition.
Coming back for segment number 2 on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition. And by the time that we record next week, the DC CW universe is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
One show is coming back and the rest are following shortly after.
Yep.
The Flash is returning January 15th.
Yep.
On the CW. Kicking off the return post Elseworlds.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different stuff going on. So, Pat, let me just kind of hit you with some bullet points. What are you expecting out of the Flash going into the season's end now?
You know what? I'm kind of interested to see where they go with the kind of post Elseworlds, because I feel like Elseworlds isn't just a Crisis on Earth X where, it kind of happened and then you move on from it. I feel like there might be some lingering, I don't know if ill feelings are the word, or kind of like some questions lingering about like, what's going on here? What something doesn't seem quite right. We got to look into this.
Yeah, I'm really thinking that Flash is going to be the major focus of all the shows on the CW moving forward, because the Flash and Barry Allen especially are so tied into Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Mm-hmm.
This has been teased since season 1 of The Flash.
Yeah.
And now they're finally having the payoff, albeit though it's going to be next fall.
Right.
But still, I think you're going to see a lot more Easter eggs coming through the Flash's way, building towards that. And I definitely want to see where they go with each character now. Obviously, things are not going to be the stat quo after Elseworlds. I don't think that the crossover is just going to be one and done and everybody forgets about it. I think we're going to see a little more tie-ins to different universes, and I think it's basically going to be interesting to see if this is the last time we see the Monitor this season.
Yeah.
And I don't think it is. I think that we're going to see him appear maybe in the season finale. I got a feeling. Like, I don't think he's just going to be one and done this year. I could be wrong, but my overall gut instinct is, okay, they're dealing with a crisis with sciatica.
Right.
And the villain, not exactly a household name if you talk about Flash rogues.
No.
And this has been one of my sticking points about the season, is you have such a vast rogues gallery. Why are we just kind of digging into the rogues that really have been kind of over and done with, so to speak? That I'm not saying they're stretching, but it's just kind of an interesting take to me, because like if I was writing Flash, I would go and recast Captain Cold. If I couldn't get Wentworth Miller to come back, then fine, I go recast, and maybe I start building the rogues up and really kind of focusing on them. So obviously, what they're doing with Sciatica, I know they kind of ended the second to last season of the mid-season with them finally defeating him for now. Obviously, I don't think that's going to stick around.
Right.
And I think that now with them coming back, is something else going to change? Is the Elseworlds episodes going to kind of give a ripple effect? And maybe you're going to see characters that were not involved in the timeline now coming back.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of different ways they can go with it.
I'll say, well, we can't also forget the kind of cliffhanger they left us with before the mid-season break on The Flash, where Nora traveled back into the future, ran into the future jail, whatever the heck it is, and you ended up seeing Reverse Flash there in the future.
Yeah, that was very interesting, seeing Thawne.
Yeah, you're about Thawne in the future. Like, yeah, you're supposed to be dead, but no, here he is.
And you kind of almost wonder, like, what's going on there, which, I mean, the only one that's been able to figure out something is not right is your favorite Harrison Wells, Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Wells.
Yes, Sherlock Wells.
Yeah.
So, obviously, there's going to tie in more into that. And I think it's very interesting that they're bringing Thawne back. I think it's a good move, too.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I think it's a very good move, because Sciatica is a good mid-season villain, but I don't think it can stretch all the way.
Let's say I'm excited they're bringing Eobard Thawne back, because he was a great villain in season 1. The buildup was great, and bringing him back, because I think I don't know how they're going to explain it or how they're going to work it, but given the fact that in the final episode before they got to the mid-season break, they traveled into the past and he had to help them, and it was this whole thing. he obviously knew something was up. He knew plans weren't going to go to the way he wanted them to. So ergo, it's that whole thing you run into time travel, or okay, if you really run into somebody from the past, which you shouldn't, don't give them any more than they should know. Well, they had to. So now he knows more than that. And when we see him, he's in the prison in the future. So he knows what's going to happen. He knows how things are going to play out. I'm very interested to see where he goes with this.
Yeah, and anytime we see more Tom Cavanaugh on the show,
yes,
always a good thing.
Yes.
Especially he is so talented that he can juggle the roles.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because he can still do Sherlock Holmes or Sherlock Wells. I keep on wanting to say Sherlock Holmes. I don't know why. But you see him do Sherlock Wells, and it's obviously such a departure from the previous Harrison Wells that we've seen him play.
He's done like a dozen or a baker's dozen of Welleses from the various universes.
It kind of feels like it.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, how well he's embraced the role and just is running with it.
I'll say there was one episode where there was the Council of Wells, I think it was last season, where there was like one episode, he played like 9 or 10 of them in one episode. It was insane.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of, but the one thing that The Flash has going forward is anytime you deal with time travel, it can either really tie up a loose end really quick or open up a whole other story.
Yeah.
And the only thing that you get kind of messy is when you're jumping around with multiple timelines, you really just got to balance them. Because that's one thing that I know throws a lot of shows off. But Flash has done a pretty good job with it, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So obviously dealing with Crisis on Infinite Earths, I think they're going to be the catalyst for what's going to happen moving forward. And I think they're going to have a lot more Easter eggs than Arrow will and Supergirl, because I think Supergirl is going to be shifting to the Red Sun storyline, but I think it's going to be the Red Daughter storyline.
Yep.
So I think that the shift is going to go that way. Arrow, I don't really know where they're going to go.
Hopefully we'll find out what in the heck it was Oliver sacrificed to the Monitor.
Yes.
Because that was hinted at that he gave up something, but we don't know what. And we also have to figure out what in the what is going on with him and Felicity.
Well, obviously the toll that has been taken on their relationship by Ricardo Diaz is devastating.
We'll say it's one of those villains that, they're not going to be the same persons coming out of it as they were going into.
Right. And I think that that's a good thing for Oliver and company. Because when you have a major villain, that whether it's Slade Wilson, whether it's Adrian Chase.
Yeah.
Whether, when it's focused on one and they really can carry it and they can really just delve into the character and they're always kind of seeming like they're one step ahead, whatever the situation is, this is one spot that really kind of jumps in. And it really just shows, how Stephen Amell has been able to take the character who really has a good rogues gallery, but not like a household name one.
We'll say if you ask, casual DC comic fans, give me your top 10 DC superheroes. Green Arrow might be on the list, but it's going to be towards the bottom of the list.
Well, Arrow, Arrow, like you say, has a good following amongst the comics. And obviously, the show has just raised the profile of Oliver Queen, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's always been a member of the Justice League throughout the incarnations and has always been, he's written a lot different in the comics than he is on the show.
Sure.
So, the show is almost like a Batman version of Oliver Queen, which, has worked, obviously, getting the audience involved and has really kind of challenged the story writers to really kind of see where can we push Oliver going now. Because anytime, like I say, this has been always one of my faults when you're talking Batman, and I know I'm segueing back and forth here.
Sure.
Whenever you write Batman, it's tough to write Batman because he's almost written too perfectly. Like, there's no situation he can't get out of.
It's like, because he's been in a lot of them over the years.
Yeah, he's the world's greatest detective, so obviously he finds ways, just being the normal, moral human being, no superpowers, to somehow get himself out of this. Oliver has shown just a different dimension that he doesn't do everything perfect.
Right.
And he doesn't do everything flawed.
Right.
Or he does a lot of stuff flawed. So obviously, when the writers are stretching the season out and they're really trying to implement new characters involved, and obviously they introduced a Miko Queen from the comics which I think is a great addition.
Oh, yeah.
They're really going to try stepping the game up and just trying to see, like I say, they're almost writing this season like they're not coming back. We all know they are. Obviously. Right. Well, let's say this. I'd be shocked if they were canceled, if they got Netflixed, so to speak.
Sure.
But if they decided to end this season and just had Oliver come back as like a side character, that'd be a really interesting take. I don't think they're going to.
No.
But I think they have so much going on now. They're borrowing a lot from the new run of the Rebirth and so forth. I think that once they're digging into that and they're really implementing that on the show, I think it's going to go a lot of different ways.
I think before Elseworlds concluded, I think it was a very good bet that a lot of people had, that this would be the last season of Arrow, because it's being written like it is. And if I'm not mistaken, Stephen Amell challenged the writers to write it as if it's the last season. However, given the fact that we are, in the same calendar year that they're, now a mere, however many months it ends up being, 9, 10, 11 months, whatever it's going to end up being, whenever they decide to air the crossover, it's doing Crisis on Infinite Earths without Arrow, without Oliver Queen, feels like trying to do, the death of Superman, but without Superman.
Yeah, it's just going to be something that I don't think they can pull off without Oliver Queen. And that's how they end the show, per se.
Sure.
I mean, it'd be a solid way for the character to go out, but I don't see that happening. I really don't. I don't know why. I really don't see that going down like that. I think Oliver sacrifices something, and maybe it's himself.
Right.
Maybe. Obviously, the deal he made with the Monitor, we don't know. We have no idea what it's going to wind up being. So, obviously, seeing what they're going to go from here, a lot of different ways they can go.
Yeah.
And I think the finish strong, I mean, obviously, he did get the one-up on Diaz going into the mid-season, but obviously Diaz has been written so strongly, I don't think it's the end, and I hope it's not the end.
No.
So we'll have to kind of wait and see where kind of the new stat quo is going to go from there. Legends is coming back too. Obviously, Legends of Tomorrow has gotten a nice shot in the arm with the addition of Matt Ryan as John Constantine.
I almost don't want him to leave. I know he's hopefully going to. Let me rephrase this. He's probably not going to stick around past this season. I would love for him to, because he's such a great addition to that cast, but it probably won't.
I'm hoping he doesn't. I hope he does leave after this season.
Okay.
Because I want, and I'm going to put this out there, and I hope Twitter, social media, you run with this. I want to see a John Constantine show
done right
on the DC universe.
Done right.
Done right.
We'll say for reference, well, if you can find the episodes of the Matt Ryan Constantine show from a couple years ago, you know what I mean.
Exactly. I want to see them do it right on the DC universe. Put him over there. You don't have to say it has to be the same character. It could just be a different version. Because I think on the DC universe, they'd be able to run a lot differently and a lot closer to the comics.
They would.
Because they're hinting that they're going to go very hard R with Swamp Thing. Now, if they back that up, that makes perfect sense to do a Constantine show on there.
Yeah.
Because I think on regular cable TV, it's tough to do.
Right. Yeah, no, it is. I mean, when you start dealing with the supernatural stuff and the kind of the weird and freaky, you can't go as, crazy as you would perhaps like to.
Probably not, especially how much of a mature reader's book
Yeah.
Constantine has always been.
Yeah, there's that.
Constantine is not exactly kid-friendly, we'll just say.
No.
But that just goes to show, how Matt Ryan is doing the character on the show this year. I mean, he's kind of done enough that Legends is not exactly... I don't want I know they get kind of goofy, and I know that they, really play up the humor a lot, and I always say they're like American Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. But Matt Ryan has added like a little bit, I don't want to say of a more adult edge to it.
Sure.
But I think there's been some elements, and I think it's worked. I think his presence on the show has just added so much to what they needed. Because it's just when you have the characters, and then, like I say, this is kind of like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fault.
Mm-hmm.
When you have so many characters that are very similar, like Commander Steele and Adam, Ray Palmer, are very similar.
Yeah.
And I think it hurts instead of helps. So you need somebody that's so different than the group to stand out, that I think that once you add somebody like that, then it really kind of helps to make your show shine.
Well, so he definitely stands out in a big way. I mean, I think back to the one episode where Steele's father was touring the ship, kind of like, all right, why do we keep these guys even around? And they walk into, I forget what room it was on the ship, and there's Constantine, like, if not full naked, half naked, on the ground doing like some sort of meditative summoning something or other. And they're like, oh, this is the worst opportunity we could have walked in on you.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of adds to where they can kind of push the show, because obviously they're not going to go into full Constantine mode on the show.
No, it doesn't air late enough for that.
Yeah, you're not going to see that at all. You're only going to see, a very toned down version.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is good, because you don't want to really kind of push, anything else other than the boundaries you can.
Yeah.
So obviously with Legends, I mean, they're doing a good job with it. I don't really know where they're going to go for the rest of the season.
Right.
I mean, I know they're going to really focus on fixing the timeline and seeing what goes on there. I think they're going to have to be drawn into Crisis, though.
Oh, yeah. When you start dealing with timelines and infinite Earths, you got to bring them in.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, the same thing with Supergirl. They've teetered enough with it. And obviously, transition from how Legends is going to be. I mean, Supergirl is on a different planet, but I think by the time it's all said and done with Crisis, they're merging the planets.
Which is kind of my hope, because it's great to see Supergirl on the crossover episodes. The one nitpick thing that I hate every time, and this is because of the way they've done it, because obviously when Supergirl premiered, she was on CBS Network, they were on CW, so it was this whole mishmash of rights. They put her on a different Earth. So now granted, she's on CW, but still, because of the way writing is, they can't just go, oh, hey, by the way, we don't have, all those tricks we have to do to get to your Earth now, we don't have to do them. No, it kind of still bugs me to some degree that, like, they have to do that every time. And I will enjoy it if it happens when, oh, hey, we need help with this. They just, give her a call.
Yeah, this is going to make a lot more sense. And I think if they ever wanted to go the Justice League route on the shows, it's a perfect segue.
Well, and especially if they kind of go off that tease they gave in Elseworlds with Batwoman and Supergirl. They need them both in the same universe.
Well, the Ruby Rose pilot, I believe, has been greenlit.
Oh, it has.
So if that takes off, there's going to be a lot of shows getting added to the CW. I mean, obviously, are they going to keep everybody on?
We'll see.
It's hard to say. I mean, I'd like to think that they would.
Yeah.
But you're almost asking if they keep Batwoman on. That's 6 shows. That's almost one a day of DC TV.
Yeah.
Not a problem for me.
No.
But is that what the CW wants to do with their network?
Right.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
Because the CW DC TV universe, however you want to define it, has always done well in the ratings. I mean, even look at Black Lightning.
Yeah.
Which is on another planet as far as we know.
Right.
It's not kept in the same universe. And who knows if they're going to be brought into Crisis on Infinite Earths. I don't think they will.
No.
I got just kind of the sense that they won't. But it would make sense if they did.
Yeah.
But depending on what they want to go with.
There'd have to be a lot of explanations to Black Lightning, what is going on, though.
Yeah, but I tell you, I think it's one of the best shows they do on CW, bar none. And I'm obviously interested to see where the direction goes with Black Lightning versus Tobias Whale. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm waiting to see.
Yeah.
That's like the end game of this season. Because I know that they've kind of been introducing other antagonists on the show. But when you get Tobias on there, that's the one. And that's the one that's going to be interesting to see go up against Black Lightning.
He's one of those villains that, like, anytime he shows up on screen and he's in a certain mood, and if you watch the show, you know what mood I'm talking about. He's one of the ones that, like, if you're sitting down or, you're kind of leaning back in your chair or your couch, that's when you kind of sit up a little straighter, turn the phone upside down, like, all right, what the heck is this man about to do? Because it's not going to be good.
Yeah. Marvin Jones, he's got that charisma.
Yeah.
When he's on screen, you got to watch what's going on.
It's one of those roles, you talk about it with Robert Downey Jr., you talk about it with Vincent D'Onofrio. It's one of those ones that, like, okay, he was born to play this character.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be so much going on this season. And with The Flash coming back, too, kicking everything off to tie it all back together, the CW is looking to go out on a strong note for this season. And obviously, the build-up and how well Elseworlds came out, everybody is really excited about Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yeah. Everybody's almost looking past the seasons to see how each show ends up. I mean, I think everything is going to end up pretty strong. I'm really thinking Arrow is going to be the standout one of the bunch. I'm thinking Supergirl, especially if they're going to be doing the Red Sun storyline, as it appears they're going to.
Yep.
That could go a lot of different ways, but I love it that they're actually taking it and they're flipping it to apply to Supergirl.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a sleeper one, so to speak. Black Lightning, I think, is going to end very strong this season. And obviously, like I said, I think they're building up for the ultimate confrontation between Tobias and Black Lightning. Legends, you don't really know what you're going to get.
Right.
And I'm not meaning that in a bad sense. I think it's going to be in a good sense. But with John Constantine on the show, the unpredictability factor is raised to the roof. And like I said, I hope he stays on the show. But like I said, the other part of me was like, no, let him go to the DC universe and just go nuts there and just have the writers go completely Constantine to the comics. That's what I want to see with that. And then obviously with Flash, we don't know what we're going to get. We really don't.
There's a lot more questions than kind of answers.
Yeah. With Arrow, we kind of have a direction and an idea where they're going to go. And obviously I want them to at least address a little bit more this season that John Diggle is actually John Stewart, which I've been saying since day one. Day one, folks.
This is true. I can't verify.
Yes. Before we even started the podcast, I've been screaming that that's John Stewart. But obviously, taking it to the Flash, we got to see what they're going to do this season. And obviously, tying it back to a classic villain like Thawne, I think can only help.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited to see it.
I've missed that kind of monotone Eobard Thawne speaking in that show.
The cool calculating. Just, not rattled.
He walks into a room and he's not talking. He's not grandstanding. He's whispering very quietly, and he's talking to you because he knows he's better than you.
January 15th, this all kicks off on the CW, so catch up on episodes if you can, and then stay tuned for The Flash when it returns on January 15th. But hit us up on that hashtag, ODPHEE. What's your thoughts on the current season of the CW? You excited to see it come back? What's your thoughts where it should go? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jimmy Gazdick from Crimson Brethren and Floodlands, and you're listening to ODPH.
Coming back for another segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, and HBO decided to drop a teaser trailer with a lot of footage for a lot of shows. Plus, Pad's got the Game of Thrones prequel casting lined up. So first, let's get into the big news that's kicking off this weekend that we're going to see a lot more of, and that is the return of True Detective.
So let's hope it's a return to form for True Detective.
Yes, because I love the casting.
Yeah, Mahershala Ali is, of course, playing the title character for this upcoming season. Don't know quite much about what the story is. According to the IMDb description of the first episode, it says, quote, "The next installment tells the story of Macabre," and I probably butchered that name, crime in the heart of the Ozarks.
Macabre?
Thank you. Macabre and crime in the heart of the Ozarks, and a mystery that deepens over decades and plays out in 3 separate time periods. Close quote. Now, I do know, having watched an episode of the Netflix show with a friend of mine, Ozarks is kind of like, I think it's in that like Missouri down south areas.
Yes.
So that there'll be that down south southern feel to it. Mahershala Ali, of course, is playing the title character. I'm interested to see where this goes.
I tell you what. Season 1 of True Detective is one of the best things ever on TV. Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey absolutely killed that thing.
Yeah.
That was by far so like in your face, no apologies, true detective, crime, storytelling. Like to put it into words of just how good it is, I don't even think I could do justice.
Right.
You need to watch it and just truly appreciate it because everything ties in and you just see just the emotional depths that they go into in their characters. And then season 2 definitely did not hit its mark, in my opinion.
No.
Definitely just...
I think that's true for a lot of people.
Right. It's just too many characters, too many side stories. The one thing about True Detective is you don't have to watch every season.
Right.
To connect everything. It's all different, separate stories.
I'll say it also, to me, from what I remember, it felt like the slow burn of slow burns in like the worst way possible.
Well, there was just so many characters involved that it was just too much that you just didn't really have like an emotional impact for any of them. Like I honestly did not get connected to any of them, and I wasn't really rooting for anybody.
Right.
It just kind of got to the point. It was like, this is the end.
Yeah.
Like what did I just watch? And that's just my honest opinion about it. I mean, I am not a fan of season 2. I love season 1, and once I saw that Mahershala was casted in season 3, Mahershala Ali, that is.
Yep.
I was on board.
Which, of course, if that name does sound familiar or the face does look familiar to you, he was Cottonmouth in Marvel's Netflix series Luke Cage. He was also Remy Danton for a couple seasons in Netflix's TV show House of Cards.
Right, and obviously his work is just unparalleled.
I'll say there's also another Luke Cage connection in this show as I'm looking at the IMDb page. Deborah Ayorande, who played Candace in Luke Cage, is also in the show. Also interesting, there's a DC connection in this show.
Oh?
Ray Fisher does appear in this, at least the first episode. Of course, Ray Fisher, if he sounds familiar, played Cyborg, a.k.a. Victor Stone, in both Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Justice League.
Very interesting to see. Now, this comes back this Sunday as we are recording.
Yep.
January 13th, I believe 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Yep.
On HBO. Check your local listings, but do not miss this. I guarantee you, if you love real, in-your-face drama and great storytelling, this is going to be something to watch. True Detective returns Season 3.
Yep.
Can't wait. But that wasn't even the biggest thing from the HBO teaser trailer that we were seeing.
No. So we got our first bit of footage from the upcoming Watchmen TV series, which we knew was coming, and we knew, it was happening, obviously, but we had not seen a thing from this.
Yeah, this is one that is a highly, highly... interesting topic to talk about. You know my stance on this. I am not super excited they're going back to Watchmen without Alan Moore being involved.
Right.
And obviously, he's never going to be involved again. So
Right.
anytime that you mention Watchmen and it's not connected with Alan Moore in the original story, I kind of, hold my breath a little bit and just want to make sure that everything is going to be okay. Now, obviously, the footage that we saw was very quick, so we did not see a ton of it. We did see Jeremy Irons as Ozymandias, and very, a lot of masked people.
Right.
It
was like a jailhouse looking thing.
It almost seemed like a jailhouse, and I want to say that it was somewhere in the Midwest. So.
Yes, I did get that vibe because there was an outside shot. It's kind of the rolling plains. If you've ever seen a photo out in the Midwest of the United States, like the Kansas or Missouri or something. So, somewhere down through there. It did get that Midwest feel to it.
Yeah, I want to say it almost looked like it was in Oklahoma.
Yes.
I didn't catch anything. Hit us up on the social media and, definitely let us know.
Say maybe you recognize where it is.
Yeah, and it was just something that as we're watching, it just kind of looked like there was a jail, there were people wearing masks, and that's one thing that we've seen in a lot of the teaser trailers. So I'm not sure what that's supposed to represent because as far as I know, this is set after Watchmen.
Right.
Years after.
Right.
So obviously going in that perspective, there's a lot of questions to get asked, and we do see the new Rorschach in this as well. I mean, it's all very brief, but we do see somebody that is wearing a mask, albeit it's not the same moving facial, Rorschach test.
Right.
So obviously, and I'm going to say this right now, I don't believe this is connected to Doomsday Clock in any which way, shape, or form.
No, there might be an Easter egg for fans just to be like, hey, there it is, cool. But I don't think at any point it's going to tie. At no point are you going to see Superman's cape hanging around somewhere in this.
Right. So obviously, going in with this, it's kind of very interesting to see where they're going to go, because obviously with DC doing Doomsday Clock, they are tying in the Watchmen universe to now the actual DC universe, which is a very fine line to walk, but Jeff Johns has been walking it very well. Doomsday Clock has been a great read thus far, but to see if they're going to go a different route on the show, I'm just, like I say, I'm watching and just kind of holding breath a little bit, because Watchmen is the iconic story. It's where most comic book stories are benchmarked against since it's come out. It's definitely was a different direction, a different tone.
Yeah.
Trying to really break down Watchmen. And I'll say this right now. I had no issue with the Zack Snyder film. I thought it was probably a very good representation of the story to however you're going to do it. I don't see how the movie version was going to be any different, really.
Right.
But it was very interesting to see, but you understand that Watchmen is not exactly good guy versus bad guy.
No.
There's a lot of layers. This kind of really set the tone for a lot of stories moving forward. And like I say, to see it in a movie, I thought it was okay. Yeah. I don't really have a real anger issue with it that they did it. I mean, obviously, if you're going to do it right. And I thought they did a good job with it. Not a blowaway, like it's the greatest movie ever, but I think they did a good job with it. But to see him go back to it, it's just kind of like... It's
puzzling, and it's also interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that, I'm definitely going to be watching, but I have no idea what they're going to do.
Which is sometimes a good thing, because you're going into it with no real expectations of, I want to see X, Y, and Z.
Right, but the problem with this, though, is it's Watchmen.
Right.
And the benchmark has been set.
Right.
So it's like, you got to hit that, because anything less... it's not going to tarnish the legacy of the book. The book is standalone. Nothing can really hurt that. But just to see the characters in the lasting outside the book legacy, that's where you really got to nail this out of the park. I mean, the casting for the show has been great that we've heard thus far. Yeah. And like I said, the only one that really is standing out is Jeremy Irons, I believe, is playing an aged Ozymandias. Which, if you know the story, you know about him.
Right.
If they're going to center around him, okay, but let's see where we go. And then it's like I said, the only thing we've seen is really him and Rorschach.
Right.
Which is a good tease, but it's also got a lot of questions of how much are they going to follow the major storylines of the original film, or original book, rather.
Yeah.
A lot of questions to ask. And definitely stay tuned for more information on that as we get to it. I don't have a release date yet. I haven't seen anything yet. I'm just saying it'll probably be out by year's end.
Sometime.
Hopefully. And then we'll go from there with it. And hopefully I'll be able to breathe by that, so I won't be holding so much breath. But Pat, that wasn't even it from it.
No, so we got our first, albeit 4-second footage from the upcoming and final season of Game of Thrones. Of course, it features the dragon, one of the dragons flying through. I think it was footage from last season. But then it gets to kind of the sweeping overhead shot of Winterfell that you're used to from the opening title sequence kind of looking thing. And then you see...
Daenerys?
Thank you. Daenerys walking into Winterfell with Jon Snow. Jon Snow. I don't even know if Snow's the right word to call him these days, because given how the season ended. But Daenerys is walking in there with Jon Snow and Sansa's standing there, and there's a pause. There's an audible pause where she says, "Winterfell is yours." I get the feeling that she's kind of saying that, but she's not saying it 100% confidently.
I don't read the books. I'll be the first one to tell you. I'm just going based off the TV show. I know you have, Pat.
Yeah.
So I will kind of defer my Game of Thrones, theories with you. I really don't know where they're going to go, except I think that it's going to end very epically. Mm-hmm. And I think that now we talk about benchmarks set high.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones is in that conversation.
Yeah.
That they can't end on a weak note.
No, they can't go like a final episode of Lost.
No, they need to really deliver a home run, so to speak. This season, there's a lot of pressure on it. Mm-hmm. And I will say, arguably the most pressure on a TV show to deliver.
Yeah.
That's going to come out in 2019. Arguably. We can argue this. And I think for Game of Thrones, especially as we're going to get to in a little bit about the prequel casting, where Game of Thrones has to finish on a very strong note, because anything, if it doesn't,
right,
the prequel needs to have that anticipation for it to really succeed. Because if it's a weak ending for whatever reason, it's going to kill everything.
Well, I can say this in regards to the books, where the show is leaps and bounds ahead of where the books are. The books are, if I'm not mistaken, at the same point in the show where Jon Snow got stabbed.
Okay,
so that's where the books are. It's taken George R.R. Martin a decade or more to write the next book, and there's no signs it's coming out anytime soon, much to the frustration of yours truly and a lot of fans. So that's where we are in the book. So there's no kind of you can search the internet for fan theories and what have you, but there's no, oh, hey, let's go look up on the Game of Thrones wiki page to see what kind of hints of what's going to happen. You can't, because it's not out yet. So we'll see in that regards. I think in the show's regards, like you said, the anticipation of this final season is very high. They have to deliver a home run out of the park. And I think the one good thing, if you are hoping that it's good coming out, is I believe it was the HBO president did an interview the other day where he said essentially they've created 6 movies where it's spectacular. It's a great finish. And he said, I sat there watching this feeling like I was watching a movie.
And that's what they need to. I said, if they don't, and this falls flat, it kills everything they've built up. I mean, the aura and the mystique that's around Game of Thrones. Even when you talk to casual fans like myself, when you get Game of Thrones, it's been this epic adventure.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me a while to get into Game of Thrones, and I don't front about this at all. It took me until about the 5th episode of season 1 before I'm like, okay,
it's a slow burn, but yeah,
I finally get it, because it took me a while. Let's just leave it at that. But either way, the buildup has been there every season, and obviously there's an expectation that comes with it. And obviously now, with it being the final season of the characters we all know, and just how crazy, the episodes have been. I mean, just on the epic, action sequences that we've been watching over the years, they need to really drive it home, and they need to make it the event on television for 2019. I think anything less is a letdown. And no matter who winds up winning, which when we get to the season, we can kind of dig into a little more. I don't want to give this is who I think is going to win pre-speech just yet.
Yeah.
I have it already, and maybe I'll blog about it, but before then, I don't know. We'll see. But either way, they need to deliver, because obviously with a prequel coming out, they got to have a lot of momentum going into it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the casting, Pat, you got that lined up?
So, yeah, HBO has announced the full cast for the Game of Thrones prequel, which is scheduled to begin shooting early this year. This is an article from BuzzFeed News that says, quote, "The show will take place thousands of years before the events of Game of Thrones, depicting the descent into the darkest hour of the golden age of heroes. The show's description also teases the true origin of the White Walkers, the mysterious The Mysteries of the East and the Starks of Legend, adding that it's not the story we think we know. So who's in the show? Jamie Campbell Bower and Toby Regbo are in it. They will be playing opposite each other. Who a lot of people might you might know the faces. They played opposite each other as young Grindelwald and young Dumbledore from the most recent Fantastic Beasts movie. They also joined Naomi Watts and Josh Whitehouse, who were previously announced as cast members. Other familiar faces are Georgie Henley, who, of course, if the face looks familiar but just a little bit older, she played Lucy in the Chronicles of Narnia films.
Okay.
And then you have Ivano Jeremiah, who starred in the Black Mirror episode Shut Up and Dance. Naomi Ackie, who was in Lady Macbeth. Denise Goff, who was in Colette. Sheila Atem, who was in Harlots. And Alex Sharp, who was in To the Bone. Round out the cast. So we don't really know who they're playing or what they're playing because, hey, it's HBO. They never tell us anything. And then it says author George R. R. Martin and writer Jane Goldman co-created this prequel series. S.J. Clarkson will direct the pilot. Now, the one thing I do know is, from various articles, they have said that it is taking place thousands of years before Game of Thrones. Don't expect any Targaryens. Mm-hmm. Don't. As for where it's going to go, I do know, and I do have, it's a coffee table book. I mean, let's be real, this thing is massive. There was a book put out a number of years ago. I forget the exact year, but it's it was written by George R. R. Martin. It's called The World of Ice and Fire. And it was this kind of subtitle is The Untold History of Westeros in the Game of Thrones. That, I haven't read the full thing because, it's a massive book. It goes pretty far back in the history. I'm kind of interested now to dig into it a little bit more and see how far back it goes, and maybe we can, once we find out some character names and where it's taking place, maybe we'll be able to glean some information about where the show's going to go from that. But as for now, we don't really know.
Yeah, this is going to be some kind of, uncharted territory. And like I said, this is all hinging on the success of the regular Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. Because I think if it's a letdown, I think fans are not going to be as excited for the prequels.
Right.
I think if it's a home run out of the park, I think that this is going to definitely be something to watch. Because anytime you talk prequels, it's very interesting waters.
Sure.
I know we just talked about Watchmen and being post-series. Anytime you talk about prequels, and especially if they're not written as a prequel,
sure,
and it's kind of written after the fact, you never know how it's going to come out.
See, and I know Star Wars kind of ran into this with the prequels, and I know a lot of people complain about that, but I think the Game of Thrones is kind of safe from that because it's thousands of years before anything that happens in the current TV show. Ergo, you're not having to run into anything that we have to get, so-and-so to such and such place, and they have to be missing a limb by the end of it.
Right.
I feel like they're far, they might drop little hints and something you might have heard in the show or a reference of battle. You might see that, but in terms of we have to get the Targaryens to, such and such place because it happens in Game of Thrones. No, they're set so far in the past that you don't really have to worry about that.
As long as they deliver on the acting and storytelling, I'm going to be on board. And like I said, with Game of Thrones, the season finale this year is going to be the biggest event on 2019 for TV, bar none. Bar none.
Oh, yeah.
So if they deliver, they can definitely hit it out of the park, and then it'll just build up more anticipation for whenever the prequel decides to join the party. Either way, HBO's got a big 2019 coming forward. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPHEE. What are you looking forward to seeing most on HBO this year? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is the King of Lisle, Luke Visengard, Gladius 205 champion, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition. Pat, kick us off on those one-shots.
Of course, we got to talk about little Marvel Spider-Man on the PS4 action because something little interesting got dropped this week on the Marvel's Fantastic Four kickoff live stream. Of course, the comics publisher teased something related to Marvel's First Family coming to the Marvel's Spider-Man on PS4 game. Speaking on the live stream, Marvel's Ryan Penagos, which if you're on Twitter and you're a Marvel fan, you're familiar with who he is.
It's Agent M.
Agent M said, quote, "Something fantastic is coming to Marvel's Spider-Man real soon. I can't tell you anything more right now, but you'll want to keep an eye out for this. It's going to be something it's going to be amazing and fantastic," close quote. And then, of course, the Marvel Games official Twitter account tweeted out, and for our final hashtag Marvels 4 week live stream announcement, something fantastic is coming to Marvel Spider-Man. Any guesses? Hashtag Spider-Man PS4. They tagged Insomniac Games, who, of course, is the makers of the game, and then they tagged PlayStation. Insomniac Games quote tweeted it with the eyes looking off to the side emoji. So there's something coming. Nobody's quite sure what. I've beaten the game. I've beaten the 3 DLCs. DLCs were all great. Ending was a bit of a letdown because the buildup was so great, and the ending kind of just gave one of those, and we're done. But as fans of the game on the Spider-Man PS4 subreddit have noted, if you go to the selection screen to choose which of the DLCs you want to play, because they're separate, it's not one of those like you can just start at the beginning and play all the way through, seamlessly. It's kind of a stop and start thing. They've noticed that there is enough room for one more DLC selection. Nobody's quite sure what it's going to be, and to my knowledge, unless there's something in the game that I've missed, there's no kind of Fantastic Four references or kind of hints or Easter eggs in the game. I mean, the Wakandan embassy is there. This Doctor Strange's Sanctorium is there. Avengers Tower's in it. I mean, you can find compilation videos on YouTube of everything, all the connected stuff that's in the game. But to this point, there's been nothing Fantastic Four in the game. So I'm interested to see where they go with this.
There's so many different ways they can go.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, and I'm trying to get this verified as we can, it's Fantastic Four week at Marvel.
Yep.
So this would make a lot of sense for them to really kind of bring something to the forefront and obviously tie it into the huge, huge, huge success of
the video game.
the video game.
There was an article the other day that said as of like the end of November, it had sold like 9 million copies. And of course, that was at the end of November. So now that's digital and physical sales. So now you got to figure we're in January. That's got to be easily 10 million by now.
Oh, obviously. And if you can tie in the Fantastic Four, because especially now that they've just got the reissued or the restart to the comic, and they're doing a lot of things there. I know they're doing the wedding of Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters. That's finally years in the making if you've been a long time follower of the book. That now, I mean, the Fantastic Four is coming into prominence, and obviously, I'm not trying to say this is going to tie into what's coming down the road in Avengers. Maybe we'll get that bonus scene. But just saying in with Spider-Man, the video game, I wouldn't doubt you're going to see one of two things happen in there. It's either going to be a different costume that Spider-Man had.
Yep.
That you'll see.
I can see that.
Or possibly, and I note how I'm wording this because I don't want to build any hope up. I haven't read anything. You might see it tie into like the Fantastic Foundation, the FF, the white book when he was in, that they all had the white uniforms.
Yeah.
I could see something like that happen in a DLC.
I would say there also could be, I think the tie-in could come in with what happens with Harry Osborn. If you haven't played the game, I won't spoil it for you, but if you have played the game, you know what I'm talking about. I think that might be the tie-in or how they might bring him in some capacity.
Could be, and you know what? I wouldn't doubt it. But either way, I mean, I think it's very cool that Marvel is really pushing the Fantastic Four again.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's hashtag Fantastic Four week at Marvel, so definitely pop over to Marvel.com and check it out. They got a lot of different stuff going on. If you're not too familiar with Fantastic Four or you're an old fan, definitely go check it out. And if he's coming to Spider-Man for PS4, look out.
Oh, yeah.
Look out whatever they got coming for it involving Fantastic Four. So for my one-shots this week, I got a couple. Comic book-wise, Young Justice is coming out to the stands.
Woo!
The reboot by Brian Michael Bendis and tying in the original. Connor Kent, Bart Allen, Tim Drake in Continuum. With a lot of new faces. This is something to definitely pick up. I mean, like I say, especially with Bendis writing, and you know how he's really building this up. This is the first one under the Wonder Comics banner, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm definitely intrigued by it because obviously we have Teen Titans, and this kind of goes into the question of how many Robins you can have in a DC universe.
Yep.
Because as we saw, the Tim Drake costume from the promotional arts is not the Red Robin.
No.
It's his traditional Robin uniform. So depending on the direction the book is going to go in, I haven't read the book yet, but I mean, I'm just seeing Bendis is writing, Patrick Gleason is drawing. Enough said for me to go down to this shop and go pick it up. And another bit of DC Universe news.
Okay.
There was a casting for StarGirl that really caught my attention out of nowhere.
Interesting.
Now, it's been doing some quiet casting here and there, and I love everybody they've added to it. But Luke Wilson has been added to the show.
Interesting.
And he is going to be playing StarGirl's stepfather, who, if you follow the Justice Society of America, he is going to be playing the hero Stripe, Stripe. It's spelled out because he's kind of like, I want to say, like along the lines of Iron Man in a suit. If I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I've read StarGirl or the JSA. So if I'm not mistaken, he is somebody that pilots a suit and is kind of like the sidekick to StarGirl. So this is going to be very interesting to see when the DC universe gets rolling with it. I mean, albeit, though, they just had Young Justice, as I was just talking about, the comic come out. The first 3 episodes of the new Young Justice Outsiders came out. Very good. Very well done. I'm not going to spoil anything for that. If you haven't checked out the DC universe, you need to do it. Definitely check out the site. Worthwhile. Titans is good. Young Justice has been on point. Next up is Doom Patrol, February 15th. Not that I have that circled by any means. And then Swamp Thing coming right after that. And then Year's End is going to be Stargirl and the animated Harley Quinn. That's just what they have on tap for 2019. Hopefully 2020 has got a certain John Constantine show coming there, but I don't know. I can only hope so much. Let's put that out in the social media universe. Let's make that happen, folks. But that's all we got for this week on the ODPH Entertainment Edition. So for Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition. We'll see you next time.